Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Thinking back to the time we're planning what we might do as our own thing compared to where we are now, and I reckon there's a good chance that it's unrecognisable. Or at the bare minimum, it's not exactly what we were expecting. More often than not, we fall into a business venture or an idea and tumble our way through it. That's just total business facts. So I'm grateful that my guest today, the lovely Lisa, keeps it super real about navigating that experience. In the sharing of Lisa's business building story, you're going to hear all about the path from leaving a role to finding your business direction, tumbling through said business development, upskilling as an entrepreneur, finding surprise partnerships, and putting a price on a service offering. Let's get into it. With me today is Lisa Greensill, whose two-pronged business is helping financial advisors be relatable, memorable, and referable through consulting and done-for-you creative services. She's a marketing advisor connecting the marketing dots for financial advisors with purpose, process, and personality, working on their strategy as well as hosting workshops and speaking gigs. She's also one half/co-founder of Brand Over, a creative collaboration focused on taking the bland out of financial brands. She helps financial advisors find their edge and tell their story in a way that clicks with perfect fit clients, using authenticity as their X factor. Working with many financial industry powerhouses over the years, in 2022, Lisa was named Marketing Professional of the Year by Women in Finance and Marketing Consultant of the Year by IFA, that's Independent Financial Advisors, also that year. And this year, she's a finalist for Marketing and Communications Professional of the Year by Women in Wealth. She's carving a unique sector of business and finding the ways that suit her best to do it. And we do love an exploration and a creative collaboration that comes out of just getting started in your business. So I'm excited to hear how it's all coming together. Lisa, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Hey, Kim, it's wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here and chatting all things your business. And I do really love a co-structure in a business with, one thing happening, another thing happening, and all the exciting things that come up as we get going. And on that note, I'd love to know about your business partner with Brand Over, Ainsley, and how she might describe you.
Well, that's a fun question. I'd actually say she would. We think about it. I think she would definitely say fun. She would say surprising at times and probably energetic. And I'm saying energetic, but then sometimes also like erratic, but erratic in a surprising way. So lots of ideas and things always coming.
Oh, I have so many questions about your business partnership together because I know it has a pretty interesting backstory about how it got started. But, I think fun and energetic from a business partner is always a pretty good place to start. But before we jump into what you're doing now and all things business, I'd love to explore a little bit about what you were doing before you were in business for yourself. What did life look like and what was happening for you?
Well, pre-kids, I was working in marketing roles in the financial advice, tech industry first, then financial advice industry. I was working in a big financial advice business and then went on to work for a financial advisor. So I was the brand manager for them for a number of years. And then when I had the kids, we moved to the coast and working from home wasn't really a thing. And though my employer at the time was super flexible and adapted to me doing work from home, it was tricky because I was working at that stage. Once I had the kids, I went down to part-time and it was essentially like a full-time role in part-time days. And, it started to just not feel as incredible and exciting as it did when I was doing it full-time. And I actually started to just lose a lot of my confidence and I'd lost my buzz for it. And then my cousin died at the age of 50. And why that's relevant is that I just was at her funeral and hearing the eulogy and hearing everything. And I was miserable at that point with work. I think maybe had a bit of postnatal depression with the kids and everything like that. And after that funeral, it was like the next day, I just said to my husband, I just don't want to be doing this work anymore. I've lost my confidence. I don't feel like I'm adding value, and I just feel kind of icky in the stomach now, like nervous, and not nervous, excited, nervous, but that, that on a Sunday before you're just about to go to work and you just get that yucky feeling in your stomach. And we just decided, okay, well, I'm just going to quit. And so I quit with nothing to land on, but turned out it was fine because people heard that I was out in the market. And I had a couple of calls from people I knew who asked me to do some freelancing work. So it was literally probably 2 weeks after that funeral and quitting that I had offers to do freelancing work. And so I got an ABN, no idea how to do anything like that. Was doing an invoice, I think, in Word, or, how it is when you first start. And so then did the freelancing thing for probably about up until I was 40, turned 40, and then my kids were a bit old. I had a bit of headspace. I don't know what it is about that milestone, but I went, I can do more than this. I just want to do more. I've got more potential. So then I went on this sort of professional development expedition to try to work out where I wanted to specialize. And a client had actually introduced me to Story Brand. And so then I went on and got accredited to be a Story Brand guide. And then that was the launch pad for Lisa Greensill Consulting. And then it kind of became abundantly clear after probably doing that for about 18 months, won a couple of awards. I knew I was onto something, but I really needed someone to visually bring my work, like a graphic designer or communication designer to work with. So I knew that was my missing piece, and I couldn't really make any progress till I found that person. So then I happened to meet Ainsley on LinkedIn, and then we literally clicked straight away and collaborated on a couple of projects. And then I was like, look, I've got this idea for a name for a brand, and do you want to do a collaboration? So I don't want to be known as a brand agency. This is a creative collaboration. And within, I think it was 3 months of meeting, we'd launched Brand Over with a couple of projects. And so it's been about 18 months now.
So take me back to that time where the confidence was low. I think it's such a pivotal time for so many of us as professionals in whatever we're doing, particularly those of us who are employed in corporate structures with that sort of high pressure, top down kind of energy, and, perhaps some other stuff going on personally. When you're getting that itch that you don't really know what's going to come next, but something doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel as good as it used to. How did that, I guess, lapse in self-confidence play out for you in the day-to-day in your workplace?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it was certainly there was definitely a turning point when I went part-time and working from home and no longer kind of there in the office and bouncing off the energy of people. And also constantly feeling like I couldn't even tick a couple of boxes of things to get done. I knew, and I was like, because I was doing so many things, it was like the Jill of all trades, master of none. And that really started to deplete my confidence. Now, that's actually not a bad thing to have a really big kit bag. It certainly has played out well for me going into doing my own thing. But at the time, I just felt like someone else could just do this job so much better than me. And that's all I could ever think. And so, you're comparing yourself to other people out there, and, you're not taking into consideration that everyone has different situations. And now looking back, then that wasn't really a feeling that anyone above me was making me feel. It was certainly my own insecurities. And I guess there was pressure to get certain things done. So it is that kind of pressure. It's not sleep. I wasn't sleeping as much, had little kids. So mentally, I wasn't as fit back then. So mentally I just didn't have the kit bag that I did back then that I do now to kind of deal with that imposter syndrome. And so it just kind of, just depleted I'd just sit at the computer and go, I'm not the right person to be doing this. Someone else could be doing this so much better.
It's a very scary moment, it sounds like, to be sitting there and then, looking forward into, as humans, like how much do we just want to know what's happening next and what we're going to do next? And then trying to plan that from a place of low confidence, I think, is a challenge that a lot of us we will go through. I know I certainly had the same experience. I completely lost my confidence in the corporate role that I had when I was in media, and that played out like me, like almost playing like I was confident as well. Like, yeah, I got this huge project. Like, this is how it should be, like this. And then like I'd be like, oh, that's not good, is it? Like, oh shit, let's just cycle down. And that, lack of confidence, I think you then tend to like start outsourcing, looking for that confidence. You're like reliant on feedback, or even when you leave and take that pressure off and you leave. Like for me, I saw a coach who was great. But even like outsourcing again to be like, tell me what I'm good at, like tell me where I should go. Was that something for you too?
Definitely. I guess though, by the time I'd left, I was contemplating completely switching industries, to be honest. I even looked into the aged care industry and being like a activities coordinator because a friend was doing that. And I thought, oh, maybe it's time for me to completely pivot because that was, I think when you try to look somewhere else, it's like the grass wasn't greener. I just wasn't at the time. I just wasn't in the right role. And then, I guess I just put the importance of finding my thing aside for quite a few years then while I had sort of one consistent client who I loved. He was really great, super flexible. I could do the work really easily and it fit in with the kids. And to be like at that point in my life, that was perfect. So I guess I had lost a lot of ambition. I didn't really have any at that stage. Doing a great job. I knew I was doing a great job, but then it was for someone else. I was helping someone else build their business. And then something clicked and then I just got that ambition back. And it was definitely that milestone kind of point. And yeah, I look back at that person that didn't have the confidence and you wish you could tell them, actually, you're doing such an amazing job. You just don't know yet what you don't know. Like you're just so much younger and life experience builds up a lot of skills that you use in work that you just don't have back then. So I'm super happy with how it all played out in the end because I absolutely love what I'm doing now. So, everything happens for a reason.
And I think it's a great example that you don't need to have your business plan like done, set, ready to go before you can take a move. It is, I think underestimated how many businesses happen from those who leave whatever it is that they're doing before or whatever. I think we all look at everyone else and go, oh, cool. So you had a business plan to be, a marketing advisor for the financial industry. And then you took steps and then you got freelance gigs and then you built it into this new offering. That's always what it looks like. And
yes,
it's so easy to, overcomplicate things in some way, but it's a different kind of complicated to just kind of fall into and like tumble through business. But it's actually the experience that so many of us have.
I actually don't know anyone that does similar stuff to like, the kind of solo duo pro type of thing that would have landed in it with any big plan. Like a lot of it's been accidental. It's to support their lifestyle and it just incrementally happens. And that's kind of how it's happened. And and it does, it's just the little things. I look back, if you had said to me what I've achieved now 4 years ago or 5 years ago when I kind of started that pivot, I would have just laughed. There's no way that's what I couldn't have possibly do that in that time. And it's just the little things that add up. And it's not having everything perfect. So I was totally someone who believed you needed to have all the pieces sorted before you could launch a business, before you could launch a service, before all of that. And what I've learned is no, you definitely do not need to do that. Like everything's like mini experiments. I've got a really great business coach. I'm in a great coaching community. And that does help as well. I would say for anyone that does. I didn't have that. For that time I was freelancing. I didn't have any mentors really or anything around me. And at that point where I started looking, did the story brand, and then I joined a coaching program to help me build out how I would kind of structure my offer. And then I've now joined another coaching community, a different coaching community, which is sort of around, running a solo duopreneur business in a way that's meaningful and freedomful. And I would say that community and the coach, the value that provides is immense. And I think if you are going to do your own thing, you do need the kind of support and different perspectives around you. That definitely helps. So you're not actually on your own.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it's the first time I've heard duopreneur and I really like it. Although like my mouth struggles saying it, but I really like that word.
Yeah, it was someone else. I was helping someone with their messaging and they were like, I work with 1 and 2 people businesses, and he's like, oh, like duopreneurs. I was like, I'm going to use that.
Yeah, it sounds like you took the opportunity to upskill in a new space to be able to develop your business out further. So I'd love to know that whole experience of how you found Story Brand, what it is, what it gave to you, and what happened next.
what caught my attention was the story brand script, which is basically a tool, a filter to help you create the key parts of your message. And it's all about the client being the hero and you're the guide. And it's works off how like movie scripts are written. And so it's like just this cool, if you Google story brand scripts, it'll come up. It's just a very cool, simple, but really powerful way to pull out all the stuff that's rattling in your head, and particularly for clients, helping them articulate what are we actually overall trying to say. Then you can springboard off that to develop your website copy, to develop emails, socials, all of that. It kind of becomes the kind of core part to springboard off for everything you do in marketing. And I guess for me, ironically, the part of marketing that I struggled with the most over the years was the writing part, which is the part, but I always felt like I wasn't a good writer. That was a story I was telling myself, and it wasn't necessarily true. It's just I didn't have the confidence because, you've got journalists out there writing, and I wasn't a journalist, and, I hadn't done a writing degree. I'd never really been taught to write. So when this came along, it's really about the words you use in your marketing and making them speak to the people that you're trying to speak to. And it just impacted what I did profoundly, because then it was something that's missing for financial advisors, especially. They struggle to articulate what they do in a way that resonates. So that was kind of how that, and then there's other parts of Story Brand that help you in like the framework for how you do your website and a framework for how you build a signature asset and, your emails. And I like frameworks because I've got a really fizzy brain and I like to be able to create things in sections. Like say for a website, everything I do is in it's like there's a story built, but it's built off sections. So I don't like to just start with a blank piece of paper. I like to kind of fill the gaps, and that's what Story Brand helps you do. So I kind of have adapted it since being certified. I'm no longer officially certified Story Brand Guide. It's something you have to license. So I've taken what I've learned and just kind of adapted it to work for financial advisors. It's just a key part of what I do before we do any of their bigger projects. So before we do a website or we do anything to do with their marketing, we always do what we call a message map.
I'm really interested in that process of skill redevelopment or upskilling, or, kind of finding something that you lean into in those early stages of business when you're figuring everything out. Because in saying that, I also absolutely have the other side where it's like toxic learning can really get in the way of the actual doing of the business. I have definitely fallen victim to the toxic learning. I've got an absolute tab after tab filled with masterclasses and courses and books, like the endless books. And they're also fantastic. But I find it really interesting when you can sort of take something, just like to find your one thing and let that catapult you. And it sounds as though through that journey, you are able to catapult into a new space where you could develop your confidence in yourself and see all the work that you were doing by executing on this structure, and then be confident enough to go, okay, I don't need that now anymore. I'm going to move on from that certification and take what I need and continue to build. And I think that's, something that we all hope that there's going to be like something we learn or a new thing that we do that's going to be the end goal. We'll just do that forever. But it's a nice reminder that everything is an evolution and we evolve as our business does as well.
Oh, 100%. And look, I've got the tabs as well with we've got like a library of all the courses and stuff that I've bought over the years, and some that I've done and some that I haven't done. And I've stopped doing that now because now I'm in a coaching group. I'm trying to really focus on, it's messaging for financial advisors, and anything that I do now is about trying to improve that and just get that, sharpen the sword for that industry and in that particular skill. Also, though, keeping a pulse on what's going on in other parts of marketing, but knowing what my lane is. I used to be say yes to doing anything, and then you'd say yes, and then you'd go and learn how to do it. But I've now started to really focus, do the stuff that I love, where I know I can add the most value, keep skilling up in that, just keep getting better and better at that. And then I'm building up a network of other people who have strong skills in their particular areas of marketing that then the clients can work with them for that. I wasn't sure how that was going to evolve, because even over the last few years, I'm just trying to work out exactly how to position what I do and package it and offer it. And it's the clarity really came once Ainsley and I partnered together, because then I can focus on the words. She's focusing on the visuals. We both focus on the strategy.
I'm glad you took me there because I am really interested in how this conversation went. So, because from what I heard from your story up front there, and also, checking out your world and your business before you were coming to this podcast to talk about today, am I right in saying that you and Ainsley didn't know each other to get started? And so this duopreneur was actually duopreneurship. I'm not going to get linguistic with it. Yeah. Just to make out new words today. Yeah. But, for this to come into fruition, like, what was that conversation like? How did you meet? Like, take me to the moment where you're like, cool, let's get into business together.
Okay, well, it actually is like, it's just funny how the world works. So I mentioned to you that I was in a program that was helping me build my brand, basically brand business, with a lady called Pia Silva. She's in the US. So I was in this group with Pia Silva, and there was this guy in the group, Jason. He's here in Australia, amazing graphic designer, but his prices were too high for me to incorporate into my projects at that stage. And he said, why don't you contact Ainsley Campbell? And I looked at her stuff, but she was a little bit too out of my league at the time, just because I was pricing a little bit too low anyway, right? So that was an issue I've dealt with over the years. But so put that aside, put her in. I have like a database of outsourcing potentials that I keep in ClickUp. So Ainsley was in that. That just kind of went to the back of my mind. But then I won a couple of awards, those awards that you mentioned. So, you put the announcement up on LinkedIn, and this girl called Ainsley happened to congratulate me. So she'd connected with me and congratulated me. And I was like, I know that name. You kind of go, who's this? And then I was like, I know that name. Went back to my ClickUp, and I was like, that's who Jason recommended. And I was like, oh my goodness, Ainsley, this must mean something. Let's catch up on Zoom. I'd love to hear about how you work, and just to see if possibly we could work together on a couple of projects. And so then we caught up on Zoom. She knew how I worked. I work a bit different because I do this, like how Pia Silva helped us develop how you do the business of branding. And she knew about it because of Jason. She knew how it worked and how it's kind of more about an intensive process, and just pieces of the puzzle. She already knew them, and she's like, that's how I want to work too. And so I was like, hey, cool. I've got 3 projects coming up. I really need the visuals for these projects. Let's partner up and see how we go. So we did those 3 projects, and during that, we just clicked and we just bounce off each other, and we make each other's work better. And I just knew. And then we just we just thought, okay, let's just do it. Like, it was literally there was no planning in it. It was like, let's just see if this works. It's a collaboration. We didn't turn it into a business. It's still not technically a business with shared ownership, like, just to be clear, like from a business structural point of view, it's not, but in the background, it's like we're definitely running it together. And we just thought, let's just see how this goes. And Ains built the brand, I did the wording, we built the website. We kind of did that over, a week or so, and got it out there. And then I don't really know. It's just evolved. I mean, we've got like goals and things we do. Like we do catch up we catch up every day, but from a planning point of view, like we're going away next week for something. So we'll be doing some planning then. But a lot of it has just organically happened. So just doing really great work, people telling other people, building referral networks. It's just organically grown by just being really clear about what we do and who we help and where we fit, like just those fundamentals that we help our clients with. It just does catapult. If clients and like other consultants are really clear about what you do, that they've been telling other people about us. And it's just been really exciting. Like we just kind of pinch ourselves that we get to do it, and that we're just getting better and better, every project we take on. And it's just really fun because we know we're adding a lot of value.
Yeah, sometimes it really is just a matter of getting one project under the belt, or getting one client under the belt for the momentum to start, to get people to start to see what it is that you do. I think we always think it's going to be like launch something into the abyss on a website and hope and pray that everyone's going to get it. But it does seem to happen, in those incremental steps. I'm interested in 2 parts I want to have a chat with you about. You mentioned there, like the business structure at the moment isn't, so you kind of haven't gone down that road of a joint partnership officially, but I do imagine that sometimes when you're in any sort of partnership, like there is a bit of the ick chat, which
Oh,
this
yeah.
is something I've thought about. I almost got into business with someone I love and adore, and she presented this with me. She's like, "Hey, this friend that has gone into business partnership with someone they didn't know super super well, suggested to go through this list of questions to be able to have like full on conversations." Now, for context, this person I'm still really great friends with. It's just a business idea that kind of fizzled out. We decided not to go ahead with it. Market was wrong timing, all that sort of stuff. But we did go through this process, and some of the questions were, do you have a prenup in the
Yeah.
marriage, and what does that look like if we split, you divorce and we split the business, in the event of somebody's death, what happens in the event that somebody wants to sell and the other doesn't, what happens? That was like very formal, and I just share that as an extreme example as well. But did you have a different level of ick conversations that you had to get through?
We've had a couple that have, because Brandover really initially was a brand of two solopreneurs just coming together. It was a brand for a collaboration. Like if we're doing a project, it wasn't coming from like the emails weren't coming from hello at Lisa Greensill and hello from Ainsley Campbell Creative. Like we wanted to show a united front to the clients. So it really just was a brand, and we didn't ever think it was something we'd be able to sell. So that's starting to change now, just with what we're building. We're actually building something that we will potentially be able to sell. So that we will be, having that conversation around official business structuring stuff. But I mean, at the moment it's worked. The way it has worked is that it's under my ABN and Ainsley's contracting technically. I mean, this is just kind of background stuff. We just have conversations about how projects are split. And, there's been, I don't know, we're both really fair. So, and we're both not really business people, which we do need to skill up in that. So, that's something we're looking at in the future is around, we just love what we do and we're just doing it together. So, look, there's been a couple of, I wouldn't say ick, just the ones around money are always a bit funny, but we've always been really upfront about it. And we've always gone by the rule of if you're not happy, if something's bothering you, you need to say it, because we don't want any underlying like resentment or anything, because you're doing different things. So you bring different value, and some projects someone will be doing more, and other projects someone will be doing, or someone's doing more admin, and and in the future we'll be looking at outsourcing some stuff. So look, the conversation is a continuous one around that, but we'll definitely be looking down the legal advice path, just because, to protect both people, but not in an uncomfortable way, just a very much a business way. Now that the experiment has proved to work, like we just didn't know. So it would have just been adding to like accounting costs and legal costs and stuff at a time when we didn't even know if the concept was viable.
It makes a lot of sense. And I love that you bring up that sometimes talking about money is a bit because it is so true. And it's, the same for everyone in all circumstances. I think until you don't feel that way anymore, it feels yucky to talk about what you want to earn or what you want to charge or how you feel about, putting who needs to put what into what, like no matter what the kind of conversations are, I know the listener will know in podcast chats, I always try to get into the nitty gritty of money as much as my lovely guest is welcoming of the conversation, because it's a very personal topic. Like money is so linked to how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about the world. Like there's just, money stories are such a challenging one to get through. So I'm always really grateful when someone's willing to kind of go there with me and talk about that, because the more we get comfortable with those conversations, the easier they become. I mean, I'm certainly not in a place where I'm even comfortable with it yet, but I am comfortable with now. I know even if my own mother wanted to contract me for a piece of work, I would get her to sign that contract.
Yeah.
And that's only after, quite a few years.
Money is, and I mean, that's why I work in the financial advice industry, because I'm fascinated by the psychology of money. There is actually a really good book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. If you haven't read it, I'd highly recommend it. Money is in any relationship. It's a tricky one. And the thing is too, it's understanding like we have very different, not values around money, but I have this, what I call a sensible, loose approach to money, in that I'm sensible with it, in that, doing all the right things with it for the future, but I'm not going to not spend on something I want to today because of my future. Like, I won't make huge sacrifices in what I want to do today for the future. But I do sensible enough stuff, if that makes sense. Ainsley grew up in a much different background. She had a single mum who, so she'll tell you a lot tighter around money. And even with business expenses, she'll definitely think twice about something when I will just be like, no, I think that's right. And I'll just be more spontaneous with that kind of spending. So that's definitely something, if we do officially do something, that's got to be considered, because you've got to, just like a business partner, like a partner, like a romance, kind of need to understand how you feel about money, what it means to you. And you don't want either person having to sacrifice their values. Like, I don't ever want her to be uncomfortable about me spending something, and vice versa. I don't ever want to be resentful that I can't do something, So it's, at the moment, it's worked really well because we just split costs around projects, and it's kind of worked well that way. We've been very open about it from the start.
Yeah, money is definitely a journey, like everything else in business, our experience with it, which brings me back to your point on pricing too low and having to go through that journey of raising your prices and all that comes with it, especially in a financial advice industry where your clients are money savvy. What was that like, having to realize you're pricing too low and then bump it up?
That's probably been the trickiest part. And a lot of creative people are the same. And it's something my business coach pointed out. He's like, you know how to do it, or you know all of it. So you're putting a value to it of what you would pay for that. But the people that you're helping don't have that same level of knowledge. They can't do what you do. It's like something else that you would pay a lot of money for. They have a different value to it than you. But I guess the issue is that clients don't actually value. They don't know what they don't know about what we do. So it's kind of like the issue that we have in our industry is the same as financial advisors. People don't really understand the value until they're in our kind of process. So that's why we don't quote for free anyway. So we have a step where we do a workshop and we scope the project and give them a lot of value in that too. So they've paid something upfront to engage with us. They can see the value we can provide. So then when we go on, if they want to proceed to do a bigger project, they've seen the value. So having that in place, that step where we don't give anything away for free, it really has helped us. And also giving people packages options, like 3 different options, small, medium, large, has also really, really helped, because we were throwing so much in that people may not necessarily have valued. And so now it's like we can strip it right back and go, okay, here's the bare minimum and this is what this is going to cost. But if you want all of this, we can totally do it, but it's going to cost that. And that has definitely helped communicate. It's really just in the communication. And there's a lot of what we do is, like with financial advisors, like with any kind of knowledge industry offering. So ours is like knowledge and creative. It's hard to articulate the underlying intangible value, but that's the biggest value that we provide in our industry, especially. So we're getting better at it. And I think having business coach and a community around me where that is a conversation that happens a lot around, knowing your value. And so, for a financial advice client, they only need to get a couple of clients to pay for the sum of the whole project. And we know that they would. So, over time, it's just, your work kind of speaks for itself, and then it has definitely got easier. But it was definitely the hardest bit. Putting that price on it has always been tricky. But the more you start to value the confidence and in yourself, it does get easier. We're still on the bride because we're still told we're too cheap for what we do by people outside, like coaches and stuff like that. So it's a to be continued.
I can hard relate in my industry, where it's sort of like you've also got people in podcasting who will charge very low to build a concept for you, and it will either be perhaps not as robust as a really deeply considered strategy. Absolutely no shade. Like, I don't know what's going on behind other people's businesses, but when I see something like that valued low, I'm like, no. Do you know how helpful that is for people, that you understand a medium like podcasting to be able to pass that information on? Just concept building alone is of huge value. But then you add, all of the intricacies of knowing the 1 percenters that make a difference, understanding the discovery, sharing that insight, letting people become podcast experts themselves through the process of building their show. It's like, that's worth some serious cash. So this is what I tell myself every day.
I know, but I guess it's like any kind of expert. It's that curse of knowledge, right? Because you know it, so you can't unknow it. You can't remember what it was like not to know it. So you take a lot of it for granted. And so then you don't value it. So it's just reminding yourself that that's got value. Like this stuff in here, like this has got value. And it's the intricacies. It's that 1%. It's the intricacies. It's the nuances. It's all that experience that's stacked up over the years. You've nailed it with that whole 1% thing. It is. It's the book. It's all the books you've read. It's all the people you've spoken to. It's all of that stuff that is the value. And so over time, you do get better at putting a price on that.
So what would you say now to the Lisa who had lost an aspect of her confidence and who was sort of starting to step out? What would you say to her now?
I would say stay curious. Don't give up. There's a whole world of possibilities out there that you haven't even considered yet. So keep going and the confidence will come.
Oh, I love that one. Staying curious and having a whole whack of trust. That's definitely something I'm trying to keep myself in mind constantly, no matter how many years in. So that's a really good one. It is, Lisa, always such a gift to give me, to give the listener, like an inside look into your business and the process of how you're going through it, how you're growing as a human behind it. Just like all of the nitty gritty stuff, because that's the thing that's going to get us in business if we're not already there, or keep us going forward in like whatever level we're doing. You know, the listener might be in side hustle mode or seed thinking mode or like 10 years deep mode with a bunch of employees. Like we could be in all different stages, all about that reminder of keeping ourselves going. And it's a gift to give that to us. So thank you for that. And how can we as a community support you in return with all you want to achieve in your businesses?
Oh, look, I'd love to connect with people on LinkedIn. That's probably a nice starting point. So Lisa Greensill, because then I get to learn from other people as well. There's links to my website, everything from there. But I think that that's just a nice place to head on over, connect with me there and mention that you've heard me on this podcast and let's start a conversation.
LinkedIn, just my favorite place on the planet. One of the most wonderful, I mean, I have the best listeners in the world, but one listener reached out to me the other day on LinkedIn and, you know, she said, I thought it's time to reach out. And I wrote back within like a few minutes and she's like, oh, wow, thanks so much for the quick response. I was like, no, genuinely, I live on LinkedIn. Like I don't lie in my podcast. When I say I live on LinkedIn, I mean it. If you message me there, I am probably going to see it within either 1 second or not too long after that.
So I go in and have appointments with my LinkedIn because otherwise I will spend all day in there. So I have to be very strict with myself.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I need to think about that. Maybe I need to set some appointments because right now I'm in a full-time relationship with LinkedIn. So
I'm part-time relationship.
Absolutely. A little side piece. All right. Well, yes. Before we totally derail this, thank you so much for spending the time with me today, Lisa.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.